I checked my tie one last time before turning off the car. It was old, just like the car itself. I smiled anyway. Tonight will be different, I whispered to myself. 2 years of marriage, maybe they'll finally accept me. Emily looked at me from the passenger seat. Come on, she said. Don't make this awkward. I'll try. She didn't answer. She simply stepped out and walked toward her parents' mansion. I followed behind her. The huge house was glowing with warm lights. Expensive cars filled the driveway. I suddenly felt small standing there with my worn shoes and old sedan parked at the end of the line. Emily rang the bell. The door opened. Victoria, my mother-in-law, looked at me for a second before forcing a smile. Oh, you're here. Good evening, Victoria. She looked at my suit. I suppose you dressed as well as you could. Emily sighed. Mom, please. Victoria turned around. Come inside. I walked in quietly. The dining room was already full. Ryan stood near the fireplace holding a glass of wine. There he is, he laughed. Did your little car survive the trip? A few relatives laughed. I smiled politely. It still gets me where I need to go. Ryan grinned. That's cute. Emily stayed silent. Edward, my father-in-law, walked over and shook my hand. I'm glad you came. Thank you for inviting me. He smiled warmly. I hope you enjoy dinner. His kindness made me relax a little. Maybe tonight really would be different. We all sat around the long dining table. The food looked incredible. Victoria raised her glass. To family. Everyone repeated the toast. I did too. For a few minutes, everything felt peaceful. Then Ryan looked at me again. So, how's that engineering job? It's going well. Still working for someone else? Yes. He laughed. I'd lose my mind making that little money. Victoria nodded. Our family has always aimed much higher. I took a slow breath. I enjoy my work. She smiled without warmth. I'm sure you do. Edward cleared his throat. Work isn't everything. Ryan shrugged. It is if you want success. Emily quietly ate her dinner without looking at me. I wished she would say something. Anything. Instead, Victoria spoke again. Emily was always meant for big things. I smiled. She works very hard. Victoria looked directly at me. She married beneath herself. The room became silent. I looked at Emily. She still said nothing. Ryan leaned back. You know, Emily used to date successful men. Ryan, Edward warned. What? Ryan said. I'm just telling the truth. I felt my hands tighten under the table. I love Emily, I said calmly. Ryan laughed. Love doesn't pay for private vacations. Victoria nodded. Or luxury homes. I looked at Emily again. Can you please say something? She slowly put down her fork. I didn't want tonight to become this. My heart beat faster. Then help me. She finally looked into my eyes. I've been trying to ignore it. Ignore what? The truth. The room stayed completely quiet. She took a deep breath. I love you. For 1 second, hope filled my chest. Then she finished. But love isn't enough. I stared at her. What do you mean? She spoke softly. My family was right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You don't fit into this family. Every word felt like another knife. I've spent 2 years defending you. She lowered her eyes. I'm tired. I whispered, Emily. You'll never be good enough for my family. The words echoed inside my head. No one spoke. Ryan smirked. Victoria looked satisfied. I slowly stood. I understand. Emily reached toward me. I didn't want to hurt you. You already did. I pushed my chair back. I think I should leave. No one tried to stop me. Not Ryan. Not Victoria. Not even Emily. I walked through the hallway, trying to breathe. Every step felt heavier than the last. I reached the front door and placed my hand on the handle. Then I heard a quiet voice behind me. Please, wait. I turned around. Edward was standing there. His eyes looked tired. I'm sorry, he said. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. I forced a weak smile. This isn't your fault. He looked back toward the dining room before lowering his voice. Don't leave yet. I frowned. I don't think I belong here anymore. You never belonged to their pride, he replied. But that doesn't mean you don't belong here tonight. I didn't understand. He stepped closer. I need to speak with you. About what? Not here. His voice became even quieter. Please, come to my study. I looked toward the dining room. I could still hear Ryan laughing. I could hear dishes moving. It was as if nothing important had happened. I looked back at Edward. His face carried guilt, and something else. Concern. Almost fear. I nodded slowly. All right. He opened the hallway door leading deeper into the house. As I followed him, one thought refused to leave my mind. If the worst moment of my marriage had just happened, why did my father-in-law look like the real story was only beginning? Edward quietly closed the study door behind us. The laughter from the dining room became distant. He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. I'm sorry. I shook my head. You don't have to apologize for them. Yes, I do, he replied. I should have stopped this years ago. I stayed silent. He pointed toward a chair. Please, sit. I sat across from him. He poured 2 cups of coffee. I know tonight hurt you. It did. I saw it in your eyes. I looked down. I loved Emily with everything I had. I never cared about your family's money. I know. Then why did they always treat me like I was nothing? Edward let out a slow breath. Because somewhere along the way, they forgot what truly matters. He looked at an old photo on his desk. You know, I wasn't born into wealth. I looked at him in surprise. I thought your family had always been rich. He smiled sadly. Not even close. He picked up the photo and handed it to me. It showed a much younger Edward wearing old clothes beside a tiny house. That was me. You? Yes. I can hardly believe it. He nodded. I grew up poor. My father worked day and night just to feed us. What changed? I met Victoria. He leaned back. I loved her deeply, but her parents hated me. They judged you? They called me a nobody. I stared at him. They said I wasn't good enough for their daughter. His words sounded painfully familiar. I heard those same words tonight. I know, he said quietly. They humiliated me at every family gathering. So how did you earn their respect? I built a business from nothing. I smiled a little. So they finally accepted you? They accepted my money. His answer surprised me. They never respected the man. They only respected the success. The room became quiet. Edward rubbed his forehead. I promised myself I would never become like them. But you think your family did? They did. He looked disappointed. And I let it happen. I asked softly, why didn't you stop them? I kept telling myself there would be a better time. He sighed. I waited too long. I nodded slowly. I almost walked away tonight. I'm glad you didn't. He stood and opened a wooden cabinet. From inside, he removed an old brown envelope. He placed it on the desk between us. Take this. I looked at it. What's inside? Something I prepared years ago. For me? Yes. I frowned. Why would you prepare something for me? He smiled. The first day I met you, I saw something rare. What? Honesty. I laughed softly. Honesty doesn't seem very valuable in this family. It is to me. He pushed the envelope closer. I've watched you for 2 years. I didn't know that. I saw how you treated Emily. I loved her. I know. I saw how you respected everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. I looked away. Sometimes I wondered if I was just weak. No. His voice became firm. Kindness is not weakness. I slowly picked up the envelope. I don't understand. You don't need to understand tonight. When should I open it? When the time feels right. I turned it over in my hands. It feels important. It is. I looked at him again. Why are you helping me? He smiled sadly. Because years ago, someone helped me. Who? My old mentor. What was he like? He was poor, honest, and wiser than anyone I've ever known. What did he tell you? Edward smiled as he remembered. He used to say, money can open doors, but character decides whether people invite you back. I nodded quietly. I never forgot those words. He walked beside me. I have one favor to ask. What is it? No matter what happens next, Don't let tonight change the kind of man you are. I'll try. No, he said gently. Promise me. I looked him in the eyes. I promise. He smiled for the first time that night. Good. I reached for the doorknob. Thank you. You'll understand someday. As I walked out of the study with the envelope in my hands, I still didn't know why Edward believed in me. But for the first time that painful night, I felt that maybe losing one family's respect wasn't the end of my story. It might be the beginning of something I never expected. 3 days passed after that dinner. Emily barely spoke to me. Our house felt cold, even when we were sitting in the same room. I couldn't take the silence anymore. Emily, I said, can we please talk? She looked up from her phone. I was waiting for you to ask. Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. I sat across from her. What's going on? She took a deep breath. I've already spoken to a divorce lawyer. I froze. What? I filed the paperwork yesterday. I stared at her, hoping she would smile and say it was a joke. She didn't. You already decided? Yes. And you didn't even tell me? I didn't know how. I stood up. So the dinner wasn't about acceptance. She looked away. No. It was goodbye. She nodded without meeting my eyes. My chest felt heavy. Did you ever love me? I did. Then why? She sighed. I want a different life. I've been working every day for us. I know. I've never lied to you. I know. I've never cheated. I know. Then why isn't that enough? She finally looked at me. Because I want more. More what? Money. Status. Opportunities. I laughed bitterly. So your family was right. She stayed silent. I whispered, you agree with them now. I've been agreeing for a long time. Her words hurt more than shouting ever could. I walked toward the window. I spent 2 years trying to make you happy. You did. Was it all a waste? No. Then why does it feel like it was? She didn't answer. After a long silence, she spoke again. There's someone else. I slowly turned around. What did you say? I met someone a few months ago. A few months? She nodded. So while I was planning our future, I wasn't planning ours anymore. The room felt like it was spinning. Who is he? A businessman. Do you love him? I don't know yet. But he's rich. She lowered her head. Yes. I smiled sadly. At least you're honest now. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't erase this. Tears filled her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. She wiped her face. I think leaving is better for both of us. I shook my head. No. It's better for you. She had no answer. The next morning, I packed my clothes into 2 old suitcases. Emily stood near the door. You don't have to leave today. I zipped the last bag. I can't stay in a house that no longer feels like home. She whispered, take care of yourself. I picked up my bags. I hope one day you understand what you gave up. Then I walked away. I rented a tiny apartment across town. The walls were plain. The furniture was old. There was only 1 bedroom, 1 chair, and a small table. For the first time in years, I was completely alone. That night, my phone rang. It was Daniel. Hey, he said. I heard. I closed my eyes. News travels fast. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already outside. A minute later, he walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. He looked around the apartment. It's small. It'll do. He handed me a cup. You look terrible. I feel worse. He sat down. Want to tell me everything? So I did. I told him about the dinner. Emily. The divorce. The other man. When I finished, he stayed quiet for a moment. Finally he said, none of this happened because you weren't good enough. It feels like it did. No. They chose money over character. I stared at the floor. I keep asking myself what I did wrong. You loved the wrong person. His words stayed with me. After he left, I remembered the envelope Edward had given me. It was still inside my suitcase. I picked it up but didn't open it. Edward had said, when the time feels right. Tonight didn't feel right. I placed it back inside the drawer. Days turned into weeks. The divorce papers arrived. I signed them with shaking hands. Every signature felt like another piece of my old life disappearing. Some nights I couldn't sleep. I replayed every memory in my head. Every laugh. Every promise. Every dream. I wondered if any of it had been real. Then I remembered something Edward had told me. Don't let tonight change the kind of man you are. I repeated those words to myself. Again. And again. Maybe I had lost my marriage. Maybe I had lost the woman I loved. But deep inside, I refused to lose myself. For the first time since everything fell apart, I felt a small spark of hope. I didn't know where my future would lead. But I knew one thing. My story wasn't over yet. A month after my divorce, Daniel knocked on my apartment door. You still hiding from the world? He asked with a grin. I'm trying to figure out what's next. He walked inside and looked around. You've been saying that for weeks. I know. So stop thinking and start moving. I smiled. You always make everything sound easy. It isn't easy, he replied. But staying here won't fix your life. He sat across from me. Tell me something. What? What are you actually good at? I thought for a moment. I'm an engineer. No. I frowned. What do you mean? You don't just build machines. You solve problems. I laughed. I guess that's true. So why are you working for someone else? I need the paycheck. You need confidence. His words stayed in my mind long after he left. That evening, I remembered Edward's envelope. I finally opened it. Inside were several business cards, handwritten notes, and a sealed letter. I unfolded the letter. If you're reading this, life has probably become harder than you expected. I hope you never need this envelope, but if you do, remember one thing. Never let another person's opinion decide your worth. These contacts are people I trust. They value honesty more than status. Use them wisely. I read the letter twice. At the bottom was Edward's signature. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I called one of the contacts. Hello, this is Michael. A calm voice answered. This is Mr. Patel. Edward told me you might call one day. He talked about me? He did. I'd like to meet if possible. Come to my office tomorrow. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. Mr. Patel listened carefully while I explained my ideas. When I finished, he smiled. You know your work. Thank you. But I have one question. What is it? Why should I trust you? I answered without thinking. Because if I give my word, I keep it. He leaned back and nodded. Edward said you'd answer like that. A week later, he invested in my small consulting business. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was enough to begin. I rented a tiny office. There was one desk, one laptop, 2 chairs. It wasn't impressive. But it was mine. Daniel walked in carrying a box. I brought coffee. You've become my unpaid assistant. He laughed. Someone has to keep this company alive. Business started slowly. Some days my phone never rang. Other days I worked until midnight. Every small success reminded me that I was building something with my own hands. One afternoon, my office phone rang. Engineering Solutions. A woman's voice answered. Hello. My name is Sophia. I'm an attorney. I sat up. How can I help you? My client needs an engineering consultant for a property dispute. I'd be happy to meet. She arrived the next day. She smiled and offered her hand. It's nice to meet you. You too. Unlike most people I had met recently, she never looked around my small office with judgment. Instead, she asked questions about my work. You seem passionate about what you do. I am. I like that. I laughed. Most people ask how much money I make. I'd rather know who I'm working with. That answer surprised me. We spent an hour discussing the project. As she packed her files, she smiled. I think we'll work well together. I hope so. She paused at the door. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. You seem careful. I smiled faintly. I've had a difficult year. You don't have to explain. Thank you. But whatever happened, she said gently, don't let it convince you that everyone is the same. After she left, I sat quietly. Her words felt honest. Months passed. My company slowly grew. 1 client became 3. 3 became 10. Soon I hired my first employee. Daniel walked into my office one evening. Look at you. What? You actually look happy. I think I am. He smiled. I haven't seen that face in a long time. I looked around the office. It still wasn't luxurious. The furniture didn't match. The walls were plain. But every corner reminded me that I had earned it honestly. Later that week, Edward called. How are you doing? He asked. I'm better. I heard your business is growing. It is. I'm proud of you. His words meant more than he probably realized. I couldn't have started without your help. No, he replied softly. You started because you refused to quit. Before ending the call, he said something that stayed with me. Success isn't the best revenge. What is? Becoming the man you were always meant to be. I thanked him and hung up. That evening, I stood outside my office and watched people walking home after work. A year earlier, I had believed my life was over. Now I understood something important. Emily hadn't destroyed my future. She had forced me to find it. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't living to prove anyone wrong. I was finally living for myself. Almost a year had passed since my divorce. My business was doing better than I had ever imagined. One morning, Daniel walked into my office holding a newspaper. He dropped it on my desk. Looks like life is getting interesting. I looked at the headline. It mentioned financial problems at Edward's family company. I frowned. I didn't know they were struggling. Daniel shrugged. People only show the good days. The bad ones always stay hidden. My phone rang before I could answer. It was Edward. Good morning, I said. How are you, son? His voice still carried the same kindness. I'm doing well. How about you? There was a short silence. I've had better days. I saw the news. So you know. I hope things get better. He sighed. So do I. Before hanging up, he said, keep moving forward. Don't worry about us. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. A few days later, I met Sophia for lunch after finishing a project. She smiled. You look distracted. I am. Business problems? No. I told her about Edward's call. She listened quietly. He sounds like a good man. He is. And the rest of the family? I smiled sadly. They made their own choices. She nodded. Sometimes people don't change until life forces them to. I looked at her. I think that's happening now. Later that week, I received another surprise. Ryan called me. I almost didn't answer. What do you want? His voice sounded nothing like before. I just wanted to ask something. I'm listening. Have you heard what's happening? I've seen the news. He let out a frustrated breath. We're losing money every month. I'm sorry to hear that. He laughed bitterly. You don't sound very sorry. I don't enjoy seeing anyone suffer. No? No. He stayed quiet. Finally he said, I guess I deserve that. Before I could reply, he ended the call. That conversation stayed in my mind. The arrogant man who once laughed at me sounded completely different. Life had humbled him. Another month passed. My company signed its biggest contract yet. Daniel walked into my office with a huge smile. We did it. We really did. He laughed. I told you this place would grow. You were right. So, boss, what's next? I looked around the office. We hire more people. And after that, we keep building. That evening, I received another unexpected call. This time it was Emily. I stared at the screen before answering. Hello. Her voice was quiet. Can we talk? What about? I'd rather tell you in person. I hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. After a long silence, I agreed. The next afternoon, I arrived at a small cafe. Emily was already sitting by the window. The moment I saw her, I noticed the difference. She looked tired. The confidence she once carried had disappeared. I sat down. You wanted to talk. She nodded. Thank you for coming. What happened? She looked down at her coffee. Marcus wasn't who I thought he was. I stayed silent. He promised me everything. And? He lied. She laughed sadly. He controlled every part of my life. I remembered the man she had chosen over me. So you left him? Yes. I'm sorry you went through that. She looked surprised. You are? I don't celebrate pain. Tears filled her eyes. I thought you would hate me. I was angry. Well, time changes people. She nodded slowly. I've been thinking about you. I didn't answer. She continued. I finally understand what I lost. I looked out the window. Understanding comes late sometimes. I'm sorry. I know. No, she said. You don't. She wiped her tears. I treated you like you weren't enough. I remained quiet. You were always enough. Her voice broke. I just couldn't see it. Those words would have meant everything a year ago. Now they only reminded me how much had changed. I hope you find peace, Emily. She looked at me. That's all you have to say? What else should I say? Tell me you forgive me. I thought carefully before answering. I don't carry hate anymore. But I can't go back. She lowered her head. I understand. As we stood to leave, she asked one last question. Are you happy? I smiled honestly. Yes. She nodded. I'm glad. When I walked back to my office, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel victorious either. I simply felt free. The broken man who had walked out of that mansion was gone. I had rebuilt my life one step at a time. As I entered my office building, my receptionist stood up. Someone is waiting for you. Who? She pointed toward my office. I opened the door. Edward was sitting quietly in the chair across from my desk. He smiled when he saw me. I think it's finally time, he said. Time for what? I asked. He looked at the envelope I had kept locked inside my desk. Time for you to learn why I gave that to you in the first place. I closed the office door behind me and sat across from Edward. He looked older than the last time I had seen him. You've been carrying that envelope for a long time, he said. I opened it months ago. But not everything inside. I frowned. What do you mean? There's a second document hidden in the back. I took the envelope from my desk and searched through it. Behind the investment letter was a folded sheet I had never noticed. My hands tightened. Edward, what is this? It's a partnership agreement. I read the first lines twice. My name was on it. This can't be real. It is. Why would you put my name on a business partnership? Because I wanted to give you an opportunity, not charity. I looked at him in disbelief. You planned this years ago? Yes. Before Emily and I divorced. Long before that. I shook my head. I don't understand. Edward leaned back. When I started my first company, my mentor told me something important. The man in the photo? He nodded. He said, one day you'll meet people who have character before they have success. Hold on to those people. And you thought that was me? I knew it was. I looked down at the document. You barely knew me. I watched how you treated employees, waiters, drivers, and anyone who couldn't offer you anything in return. He smiled faintly. That tells me more about a person than their bank account. I didn't know what to say. I don't deserve this. That's exactly why you do. The room became quiet. Then Edward's expression changed. There's something else you should know. What happened? Our company is falling apart. How bad is it? Worse than the newspapers reported. He rubbed his forehead. Ryan made several reckless investments. I talked to him once. He sounded scared. He should be. What kind of investments? High-risk overseas projects. He ignored every warning. I stared at him. And the board allowed it. Ryan hid the losses. My stomach dropped. How long? Almost a year. I stood up and walked to the window. So the company was already in trouble while everyone was humiliating me at that dinner. Yes. I turned around. Did Emily know? Not at first. And now? She knows everything. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Emily. I looked at Edward. Should I answer? That's your choice. I stepped into the hallway and answered. Hello. Can I see you? She asked immediately. Emily. Please. I need to tell you the truth. Her voice sounded desperate. An hour later, she arrived at my office. When she saw Edward leaving, she looked surprised. Dad was here. Yes. She sat down slowly. I'll be honest, she said. I almost turned around and left. Then why didn't you? Because I'm tired of lying. I waited. She took a deep breath. Marcus manipulated me. You already told me that. Not all of it. She looked directly at me. He knew my family had money. He wanted access to our company. My eyes narrowed. What? He pushed Ryan to make those investments. You're saying Marcus was involved? Yes. Did Ryan know? I don't think so. I sat back, stunned. Why are you telling me this now? Because the investigators are starting to uncover everything. She wiped her eyes. I should have listened to you. I never even met him. I should have listened to the kind of man you were. I stayed silent. She looked around my office. You built all of this without my family. Yes. I'm proud of you. Those words felt strange coming from her. She leaned forward. I need to ask you something. What? Do you believe I'm truly sorry? I answered honestly. I believe you're hurting. Her face fell. That's not the same thing. No, it isn't. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I destroyed our marriage. You made a choice. I know. You didn't just leave me, Emily. You made me feel worthless. Her shoulders shook. I would do anything to take that back. I looked at her for a long moment. Some things can't be undone. She nodded slowly. I understand. When she stood to leave, she whispered, I hope one day you can remember me without pain. After she left, I sat alone in the office. A few minutes later, Edward returned. How did it go? She admitted Marcus was connected to the investments. He closed his eyes. Then it's even worse than I thought. What happens now? The investigators will finish their work. And your family? He looked exhausted. We'll have to face the consequences. I glanced at the partnership document again. Why are you still helping me when your own company is collapsing? Because this isn't about money anymore. He stood and placed a hand on my shoulder. I spent too many years protecting the wrong things. His voice became quiet. I should have protected people instead. As he walked toward the door, I finally understood the real reason he had stopped me that night. He hadn't been trying to save my marriage. He had been trying to save me from believing the lies his family had spoken about my worth. And now, while their world was collapsing, mine was finally standing on solid ground. A few weeks later, Edward called me again. Can you come to the house? He asked. I was quiet for a moment. I don't know if that's a good idea. I understand. But I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. After thinking for a few seconds, I answered, I'll be there. When I arrived, the mansion looked different. The expensive cars were gone. The front yard wasn't as perfect as I remembered. Inside, the house felt strangely quiet. Edward welcomed me with a tired smile. Thank you for coming. How are you holding up? I've had better days. Before we could say anything else, raised voices came from the living room. Ryan was arguing with Victoria. It's your fault. Ryan shouted. My fault. Victoria snapped. You're the one who wasted millions. You told me to take risks. I told you to grow the business, not destroy it. Edward closed his eyes. This is what every day looks like now. Just then, Emily walked into the room. She looked surprised to see me. You came. I came because your father asked. She nodded. I understand. A loud knock interrupted us. Edward opened the front door. Two men in business suits stood outside. Mr. Edward, we're here regarding the outstanding payments. Edward sighed. I know. We'll need another update by Friday. You'll have it. After they left, the silence felt heavy. Victoria slowly sat down. For the first time since I had known her, she looked defeated. She looked at me. I owe you an apology. I didn't speak. I judged you because you didn't have money. Her voice trembled. I thought wealth made people valuable. She looked around the nearly empty room. I was wrong. I nodded quietly. She continued, I also owe Edward an apology. She turned toward him. You warned me for years. Edward smiled sadly. I should have spoken louder. Ryan lowered his head. I'm sorry too. I looked at him. You laughed at me. I know. You treated me like I didn't matter. I know. I can't change what I did, he said quietly. No, I replied. You can't. Emily stepped closer. We all thought money would solve everything. I looked at her. And did it? She shook her head. It destroyed everything. The room became silent again. I realized something surprising. I wasn't angry. Months earlier, I had imagined this moment many times. I thought seeing them lose everything would make me feel satisfied. Instead, I only felt sadness. Not because they had lost their wealth. Because they had lost themselves long before they lost their money. Edward walked beside me. I'm stepping down as chairman. I looked at him. Are you sure? It's time. What will you do now? He smiled gently. Live a simpler life. I laughed softly. That sounds peaceful. I think I've earned a little peace. I reached out and shook his hand. You taught me something important. What was that? Character survives when everything else disappears. He smiled. And you proved it. As I walked toward the front door, I looked back one last time. The mansion that had once made me feel so small no longer impressed me. It was just another house. The people inside finally understood the lesson I had learned the hard way. Money could buy comfort. It could buy status. But it could never buy respect, loyalty, or love. I stepped outside and took a deep breath. For the first time, I knew I wasn't walking away because I had been rejected. I was walking away because I no longer needed their approval. Life had already delivered the justice I once wanted. And somehow, that felt better than revenge ever could. A few months passed after my visit to the mansion. Life became peaceful. My business continued to grow, and every morning I woke up with purpose instead of regret. One afternoon, my receptionist knocked on my office door. Someone is here to see you. Who is it? She hesitated. It's Emily. I took a slow breath. Send her in. Emily walked inside wearing simple clothes. The confidence she once carried was gone. Thank you for seeing me, she said. I pointed to the chair. Please, sit. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. I've been thinking about this conversation for a long time. So have I. She looked into my eyes. I need to ask you one last question. I'm listening. Tears gathered in her eyes. Could you ever love me again? The room became completely quiet. I looked at the woman I had once planned to spend my entire life with. I remembered our wedding. Our dreams. Our promises. Then I remembered the dinner. The divorce. The words that had nearly destroyed my confidence. I smiled gently. Emily, I don't hate you. She nodded, waiting. I've forgiven you. A small spark of hope appeared on her face. But forgiveness doesn't mean we belong together. Her smile slowly disappeared. I understand. I loved you with all my heart. I know. But the man who begged for your approval doesn't exist anymore. She wiped away a tear. I wish I had realized that sooner. So do I. She looked around my office. You built an amazing life. I built it because I had no other choice. You deserved someone who believed in you from the beginning. I smiled. Maybe I did. Just then, there was a soft knock on the door. Sophia stepped inside carrying a folder. Oh, she said. I can come back later. It's okay, I replied. Emily looked at Sophia and smiled politely. You must be Sophia. Yes. Emily nodded. I'm glad he isn't alone anymore. Sophia looked at me, then back at Emily. She understood more than either of us needed to explain. Emily stood up. I won't keep you any longer. She looked at me one final time. I truly hope you're happy. I am. She smiled through her tears. I'm glad. As she walked toward the door, she stopped. I'm sorry, for everything. I nodded. I know. She quietly left. The office became silent again. Sophia sat across from me. Are you okay? I leaned back and smiled. I think I finally am. She reached across the desk and gently squeezed my hand. You handled that with kindness. I didn't want revenge anymore. What did you want? I looked out the window. Peace. She smiled. I think you found it. I nodded. 4 years, I had believed losing Emily had ruined my life. Now I understood the truth. Losing her had forced me to discover my own value. I no longer measured myself by someone else's opinion. I no longer chased acceptance from people who refused to see my worth. As Sophia and I left the office together, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time since my marriage ended, I wasn't carrying the weight of the past. I was simply walking toward a future I had earned with honesty, hard work, and self-respect. 6 months later, my office looked nothing like the small room where I had started. The company had grown beyond anything I had imagined. As I finished signing a contract, my receptionist smiled. You have a visitor. Who is it? She smiled. Edward. I stood immediately. Send him in. Edward walked into my office with the same gentle smile that had comforted me on the hardest night of my life. It's good to see you, I said. It's good to see you too. We shook hands before sitting near the window. I poured 2 cups of coffee. He looked around the office. You've built something remarkable. I couldn't have done it without your faith in me. He smiled. No. I only opened a door. You walked through it yourself. We both laughed. After a quiet moment, Edward looked at me. Do you remember that dinner? I don't think I'll ever forget it. I almost let you leave that night. I nodded. If you had, my life might have gone in a very different direction. He looked down at his coffee. Stopping you was the most important decision I've ever made. I smiled. It changed mine too. He let out a long breath. 4 years, I thought success meant protecting my family's wealth. And now I know it means protecting the people who deserve your trust. I nodded. You taught me something too. I did. Yes. You showed me that kindness can survive even after betrayal. He smiled warmly. I'm proud of the man you've become. His words meant more than any award or business achievement. Thank you. Edward stood and looked out the window. The mansion is gone. I heard. We sold it. How do you feel? He smiled peacefully. Lighter. I laughed. I know that feeling. He turned toward me. Emily is rebuilding her life. I hope she finds happiness. I think she will. He paused. And Victoria? She's volunteering at a community center. I raised my eyebrows. I never expected that. Neither did I. We both smiled. People really could change. After another cup of coffee, Edward picked up his coat. I should let you get back to work. I walked him to the door. Before leaving, he placed a hand on my shoulder. Never forget your worth. I won't. And never let anyone convince you that money decides your value. I learned that lesson well. He smiled one last time before walking away. I stood at the window, watching him disappear into the afternoon sunlight. Then I looked around my office. Every wall, every desk, every employee working with pride. None of it had been built through revenge. It had been built through courage, honesty, and refusing to give up. I thought back to the night when I had walked toward the front door of that mansion, believing my life was over. If Edward had stayed silent, I might have spent years trying to earn acceptance from people who had already judged me. Instead, one quiet conversation changed everything. It gave me hope when I had none. It reminded me that my value was never decided by my bank account or another person's opinion. I smiled as the sun slowly disappeared beyond the city skyline. I had lost a marriage, but I had found myself. I had lost people who measured life by wealth, but I had gained friends who valued honesty. Most importantly, I had learned the greatest lesson of my life. The best revenge was never making the people who hurt me suffer. The best revenge was becoming a man who no longer needed their approval. As I turned off the lights and walked out of my office, I felt grateful. Not for the pain. Not for the betrayal. But for the strength those experiences had given me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing acceptance. I was simply living a life I could be proud of.